We have come to the end of the second day of questioning of Hn58, the former Detective Chief Inspector of the Special Demonstration Squad from 1998 until 2001. Sorry, 97 until 2001, rather. There was more questions for him on the deployment of Hn81. We were taking through a lot of the authorization documents that showed that it was, well, a work of fiction, shall we say. And then we just started looking at the deployment of James Thompson, the undercover officer who was involved in Operation Lime. There was just the beginnings of that, essentially. We were left, I think Barr had designed his questioning to leave with his traditional cliffhanger and then realized he had half an hour left. So there was more to go. I'm joined by members of the Undercover Research Group, as ever. What did you make of the last little bit of today's hearing?
It was quite fascinating. There's times when I'm glad I'm in the side room because I was able to shout out loud, like, you can't, like there was a whole bit about child exploitation as being funny, which was literally jaw-dropping.
Yes, I mean it was a document we've seen a number of times. It's it's about a hunt stab, the Croydon hunt stab, 17-year-old, a female hunt stab that James Thompson was doing a report on. It mentions her modeling work for a gentleman's magazine. This was described by Hn58 in his written statement as humorous, irreverent, and light-hearted. It was pointed out to him that as a 17-year-old, this was clearly about child sexual exploitation. And what's funny about that? Yeah,
he tried to justify it as humorous. He initially didn't have the sense to realize it was quite sickening. And any other officer would have been, with SDS reporting is all about protecting people. It's like, where were you protecting her? You were mocking her.
I mean, there is definitely something of, I think it is clear that Hn58 was an undercover officer himself, because it's a couple in his written statement, he's referred to a number of the reports as light-hearted or humorous. I mean, something which, I think it's peppered throughout all the undercover police officers' reports, but it was very common, I think, in the 1970s when we looked at the reports back then. Who knows when he was deployed, and we're not allowed to know, we're not allowed to what area either. But we certainly get the impression that he's of that school.
I'm going to stand by the point I made yesterday. I think he had a relationship. Something smells about it. It's part of the reason he's so desperate. He's covering up. He's covering up a lot. His own deployment needs scrutiny.
I mean, he is covering a great deal. He has, throughout the last 2 days, he has said he claims that he can't recall, that he doesn't know anything about it, often accepting what's presented in front of him, and then when pushed on it, trying to defend it again, which is a frustrating way of following the proceedings. When it came to the authorization of Hn81, I think that was very detailed. We were really taken through the document line by line by Barr, and it was just shown. I mean, one of the most erroneous elements of it was suggesting that Hn81's deployment into Movement for Justice was ordered to prevent and detect racially motivated crime. When pushed on this, he said, Movement for Justice might witness some racially motivated crime and he would be able to report on it.
It was one of the most ludicrous, but it was a classic Barr thing. Well, we're going to go through this in a fine-tooth comb. We're going to unpick the language, and the whole jumper is going to fall apart in the thing of threads. It was very well done because he goes back and forth and shows how it all fits together. And as she said, like, these were formal authorizations set out in law as having to happen to justify these undercover employments and to assure that they remained lawful. It's like we're talking about the era after the regulation of Investigatory Powers Act in 2000. Should have changed the regime, but was treated by the SDS as a rubber stamping process. But this was showed how ludicrous that whole process was. That there's some other crazy stuff in there, but you say, oh yeah, we'll find racially motivated crime in an anti-racism group, and he just couldn't find an answer for it. It was clear that they were taking the piss.
Yeah, very much. There was so many things in there. I mean, one of them, he was applying to Colin Black for the authorizations. Actually, it turns out he should have been applying to Commander Moss. I mean, just from their own internal bureaucratic sort of approach, it was wrong.
I was just going to ask, like, who let that form go through? You know, like, it's just complete nonsense. You have to fill out a form, so you do it. Well, the racial motivated crime is one very good example, but someone signed that off, or someone signed it off without reading it, and the wrong person signed it off. So much for better regulation, better laws, stricter accountability. It just shows that it's worth nothing, really.
And another aspect of it was, so a justification for its deployment, because it has to be proportional, was, it'll enhance community safety. And Barr pointed out, it was actually, one of the whole reasons for the inquiry is that an undercover in the Lawrence family camp would have caused riots at the time. The very deployment, it had to come to light, would have been a public order issue in itself.
Yeah.
How was, and, going back this earlier in the day, how much this reporting was literally just targeting Black police accountability groups for the sake of being Black and being police accountability. The community, you get a feeling, given the humor humor inverted commas, like what the community they really had in mind as protecting was themselves, the police.
Absolutely, yeah, and specifically in the time sort of before the Macpherson report was published, they were so afraid of the Metropolitan Police was so afraid for their reputation and what that was going to mean, if at all they understood the term institutionally racist, which they were. They were just trying to sort of corner off everything and sort of making the impact as little as possible. And that, they went as far as to put a spy into the Lawrence corner, which is like, clearly shows on so many levels that the Metropolitan Police did not understand what Macpherson was about and did not understand institutionally racist at all, and still don't, I suppose.
I mean, we had directly from Hn58 that he didn't understand what institutional racism meant. He said that he didn't read the Macpherson report. He then very quickly backtracked and said, he read parts of it, and he came to understand what institutional racism meant. His description of what it was just sounded like racism to me. It didn't sound like he actually understood it at all. It was a non-answer.
And one of the things that Barr did was say, well, look at all the stuff that happened after Macpherson, the targeting of Dwayne Brooks. It's like, you've had this thing handed down, and you haven't changed that. You had to accept it and changed. But one point I want to make about all that is there's this been constant barrage of attack against Movement for Justice. It's like his stock response has been, we had to target Movement for Justice. They were essentially, causing disorder on the streets. It's like, we've heard from Movement for Justice. We've had Alex Holloway, Karen Doyle, others have put witness statements in. They are very clear on what their politics were, very clear their motivation, and Hn58, and he's not the only one, we're just spitting all over that. So let's anybody listening to this, let's remember that Movement for Justice are being actively defamed.
Yeah, I mean, he even had to admit directly that there was no serious disorder as a result of Movement for Justice, that all their activity was lawful, that they were having street demonstrations, but there was no serious significant disorder coming out of any of them. He kept using it as an excuse. We saw one document which was looking at the trial of Lee Lawrence. And it also included some information about the civil claim that Dwayne Brooks was bringing. And in amongst the detail of it, it mentioned the Don't Walk On By campaign of Movement for Justice. And it literally just said that, as part of them, they're hoping to connect this, they Don't Walk On By, I think. And he said, yes, it's a report on public order. And it's like, it's one line where it mentions a campaign which happens in public. That's that doesn't mean it's a report on public order, but you're just grasping onto that because you grasp onto anything.
It's quite desperate, isn't it? It's like, and another point I wanted to make is about the post McPherson period. He was asked, like you said, he had not read the document, the report, but before that he was asked, like, did you get any training? And they talked about a 1-hour presentation about racism, institutional racism. He had not bothered to go to it. And then I suppose he didn't read the report as well. He is the head of the units. You know, he's the boss of all the spike ups. So, you know, like you have to be like an example for your understudy, so to say. If he can't be bothered to go to that presentation, what do you think the actual undercovers did? Of course, they didn't go either. So, you know, like...
I mean, when he was asked about the reaction to them, he said he couldn't remember. He assumed they would have read the report. I mean, we did hear from Mark Jenner, who I think was probably being honest when he said that nobody was impressed by the McPherson report and nobody agreed with it. I mean, I think that kind of covered everything, really.
Yeah.
And it's still the case, and it's, you know, the Metropolitan Police still haven't accepted definition of institutional racism to this day. You know, the default is why would we expect anything different? So if he's going to argue is that they weren't racist, it's like, well, where's your evidence? You can't just assert it because everything points in the opposite direction. The fact that you cannot even accept the McPherson report in its entirety to this day, you've got a problem.
I mean, one of the very few senior police officers who did accept it, John Grieve, said he was referred to as a traitor ever since, and got death threats from other police officers because of it. I mean,
Such lovely people.
Such lovely people. We've had one comment there from Mr. Abley. Thank you to everybody who's left comments and liked these videos. It really helps. Mitting believed that giving Hn58 the extreme anonymity would encourage him to give frank answers. We have clearly seen today and yesterday that was a total mistaken belief. Absolutely. I mean, this is supposedly why they have such high levels of anonymity, is so that they will engage with the inquiry more honestly. That hasn't proved to be true in a single case.
In any case, no.
Just before we go off the point of authorizations, it's worth highlighting this exchange, one of the exchanges towards the end of that, where, you know, Bar having gone through the thing, having pointed out, you know, it says, oh, our collateral intrusion is minimal, but, you know, all the reports are completely opposite. You know, even then, Hn58 tried to stand behind the document, tried to quarrel with the description of it, and he eventually had to accept. I think the exact quote is substantially divorced from reality.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
it was a divorce from reality. He didn't accept it, and then sort of they tried to qualify it and tried to see what he would accept, and that was substantially.
And that's still quite a significant thing. This is your official document justifying your entire deployment in the field, all those state resources going to it, and it's a lie. He basically admitted the documents they were sending for sign-off were lies.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that the requirement to bring in annual authorizations of the deployments was just seen as a bureaucratic headache, and they didn't want to do it. I mean, we've seen repeatedly that a lot of these were just copy and pasted between officers. You know, information.
They didn't even get the officers right. When you actually read through them, you can literally see how they haven't bothered to read them. So when they say they scrutinize them in detail, and took time out to read them, the reality is they scan them, tick, tick.
Yeah. No, you got situations where they've copied and pasted from one undercover officer's deployment to another, and they've not corrected the detail of it, so it's clearly about another officer. I mean, yeah, none of this paperwork is worth the paper it's written on. We have started looking at James Thompson. We've started looking at Operation Lime. Hn58 travelled over to Bordeaux himself as part of Operation Lime, and then had to last minute go to Marseille. It was quite interesting that the evidence that we heard from James Thompson was that the lateness of the rest of the cover officers coming to Marseille was because they misunderstood a coded message that he sent. Hn58 is like, no, that's a lie. I mean, he didn't say lie. He said, no, that's not true. But that, you know, the direct contradicting of a former undercover officer's evidence is quite unusual at the inquiry. So I think it's worth commenting on.
Yeah, I think the idea was that he told them they were going to Bordeaux first, and then they decided, like on on the spot to go directly to Marseille. And he said he had issues with his phone or couldn't. It was all quite.
No, he said that he sent a coded message.
Yeah.
It's that Hn58 says that he was
Yeah,
told that
yeah,
it was a problem
yeah,
with the phone.
okay, yeah.
But I mean, L3 is very clear. It was always the plan to go to Marseille. That
Yeah.
was from the very beginning when the idea was first suggested. It was always to go to Marseille. And so, I mean, it's another sign that James Thompson was up to no good.
James Thompson opened his mouth and the lie came out. It's just like there is no way you can trust anything that man says.
I expect we'll hear a lot more about James Thompson tomorrow. There's certainly plenty more for him to answer questions about. I don't know how much else there will be tomorrow. It's meant to be another full day of questioning for Hn58. I would imagine there'd be a great deal of Rule 10s. Whether all those get asked, I think that I get the impression Barr prides himself on covering the detail in his main questioning. He doesn't tend to ask that many further questions when that comes around. So who knows if it'll be a full day tomorrow or not. But anything else you'd like to add about today's evidence?
When you started with 53 or 58 even, it's like, it felt like somebody was doing that psychological thing of greystoning, minimal, unresponsive, emotionally dead. It's like, I will be a stone, and Barr has squeezed so hard he has managed to get blood from the stone. It's like, yesterday was a masterclass, today was pretty good as well. There was definitely drop dead moments in it, definitely. Painful it is worth a listen.
Yes, yeah, it is. I mean, it is painful listening, but I think I just need to reiterate that there's a clear sign that the witness doesn't have respect for the process, doesn't have respect for the law. There's just another comment here from Proudhon. Hn58 took so long to answer Mitting's very helpful and polite offer to print stuff out for him to read overnight. Seemed very unhappy with being told to do homework. Yeah, that was just at the very end of the day. Mitting intervened to ask for Hn58 to reconsider his questions from his answers from yesterday regarding his knowledge of Mark Jenner's cover living arrangements. If you remember, Mark Jenner was cohabiting with Alison, the activist he deceived into a long-term intimate relationship for a period of nearly 5 years. He claimed he had no knowledge of this yesterday when he was questioned on it, but Mitting isn't happy with those answers. He wants, he's made sure that that Hn58 has all the documentation to be able to look through what he did know, what he didn't know, and whether he wants to submit new answers. I'm not sure he will do that, but we'll see.
Yeah, and as you made a point earlier in the day, is like Mitting is making an extraordinary number of interventions on this. He clearly sees him as a really important witness. He's not happy with how he's dodging around things. But 58 is also saying yes to a lot of points. He has to be pinned down, and that's why it needs to be like Barr to really do it. But he is saying yes, and he's blowing a lot of other officers' evidence out of the water. It's very hard for Lambert and Edmondson to come back when you have people going, yeah, I knew about relationships. None of this added this up.
Yeah, I mean, it should be noted that, 58 and then 53 on Thursday and next Monday are pretty much the last of the SDS managers to giving evidence. We've a lot more senior staff from Special Branch, some other senior Met Police staff as well over the next couple of weeks. But when it comes to the actual SDS unit itself, we really are coming to the very end of those who will be doing the inquiry. I mean, it should be reiterated, this is not the end of the inquiry in general. We have yet to come to the NPORU, and there are other deployments as well that will come later for Tranche 4, Tranche 5. There's a long way to go with the inquiry, but we are coming to the very end of the SDS.
Weird, isn't it?
Very. Anything else you'd like to add?
Nope.
Thanks for joining us. We'll do another. We'll be doing more videos tomorrow. Please do tune in then. It'll be the third and final day of the evidence of Hn58. We might even get some other people to come on these videos. Please come along if you'd like to. There's plenty of space in the public gallery. And thank you to everybody who's liking and sharing these videos. It makes a huge difference to how visible it all is.